Welcome everyone. Welcome to the West Business Center. My name is Kelly Geiser and I'm the event coordinator here at West, hosting today's webinar, B Corps, how to be a better business. Today's webinar is brought to you by the federal SBA program, the Small Business Administration Program. It's a, oh, I don't have my script up. We are both a women's business center and small business development center here for Mendocino and Lake County, and it's through federal and state agencies matched with local community contributions that allow us to provide our services to you for free. These services include one-on-one counseling, webinars, loan package readiness, and advising the small business owners and entrepreneurs at every stage of business development. We also have a pool of expert advisors that cover niche business needs from permitting to HR and e-commerce. If you'd like to learn more about becoming a West client, please visit our website or give our office a call. Just a quick disclaimer that today's webinar is for informational and educational purposes only. You can read this in more detail on our website. And without further ado, I'm so pleased to turn things over to Ben.
Well, everybody, welcome to Benefits of a Better Business. And what we're going to go over today is B Corps and Benefit Corps. And another way of looking at this is doing good with your for-profit, right? So on our tour today, we're going to go over some legal structure ways that for-profits have used to be sources of the public good, and a little bit of wisdom about how to follow in supporting that, okay? And so we'll go first with wisdom. And so when it gets down to this, one of the things that I advise people on when they come in, get a lot of people wanting to do nonprofits, okay? And I start quoting flight attendants, okay? And so the first thing they do is go over the spiel about what happens when you lose cabin pressure, okay? And so what should you do first? And if you're traveling with a child. And the idea is, okay, if you put the mask on the child first, the person who's taking care of the child might pass out, okay? Maybe knock that mask off the child, and they both unfortunately expire. Okay, so the idea is if you're not healthy enough to keep yourself going, how can you help somebody else, right? So one of the things I always tell people is that you've got to be healthy enough, able to actually be a force, okay? If you're at the point where you're trying to be good, is a way that cuts off your ability to do anything. It's a wash. Now, the next thing they say, if you're sitting near the emergency exits, okay, first of all, most people say, do you really want to be there in the first place, right? And a lot of people like me, I go there for the leg room. And in essence, what we're going to be hearing about is that idea of, if you're going to sit near the emergency exits, okay, are you able, once again, to do what needs to be done if the plane goes down, you're trying to escape afterwards, right? So able to perform the need is very important, okay? And so I guess the bottom line here is only like businesses that can keep themselves afloat, okay, should actually think about doing good. First things first, cover you, right? And so let's look at what you're doing as a business in the first place. Now, most of the times people think business, 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 you're out for yourself. Okay, but that's not a bad thing. Okay, so what's the first thing you're already achieving? Okay, if you're a small business, okay, you're part of the group that hires more people in the United States than any other group. Big business is not the biggest employer. Small businesses are. Okay, so you're providing employment, okay? And if people aren't employed, well, you know what, in providing employment, you're also probably reducing poverty. And unfortunately, with poverty comes desperation, and with desperation, crime. Okay, all this being done by a small business. Okay, so in essence, you're lifting your community. Okay, just by being a small business, and that's one of the reasons why the SBDC and the women's business centers are here. Okay, you folks you guys going to be heroes just by getting yourself up and running. Okay, and of course the last one, which has real meaning for me because I got to do mine again, paying taxes. And the thing about paying taxes that we do as a small business is, well, we have to admit it, whether we like our taxes or not, that there's some things the government can buy that it'd be kind of impossible for us to buy one-on-one, okay, and spreading that good out to our community. So, boom, you're doing pretty good. Okay, so now there can be more that's done, right? Basically, synergy, profit, operation for good, okay? They multiply each other, okay? Basically, if you're doing a good job managing your business, you will probably be able to do the same, okay? You want to also see that when you can do an analysis of your business, what you're doing good at, okay? How that can be like used because it already exists, all right? There's a thing that we do in doing a business plan, and we call it a SWOT analysis, right? And in essence, you go by your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, so you got strengths already, okay? Maybe using them, okay? You don't have to give money. You can give what? Your wisdom, your experience, etc., to a cause that you think is important, right? So a lot of times people think it's doing versus dollars, where it can be actually both. All right. So one of the things you want to ask yourself is what phase your business is in, okay? You can help almost at any level. Of course, like I said, at a certain point, maybe not yet, but how much depends on your company's development phase, right? For instance, if you're tight for cash, okay, best thing to do is doing versus dollars. But setting up and adding infrastructure to do good, okay, starting an organization, that's actually, an organization itself is actually a big move because it uses dollars in doing, right? Whenever we have someone in our management involved with something else, we've lost them. You know, management is doing something to get started with this maybe nonprofit. So in essence here, one of the things I would suggest here is when you're thinking about this, you're not going to reinvent the wheel, okay? Remember that you're an important resource, so be careful, but remember the value of what you bring in choosing what form of your contribution is going to be in. So let me ask you a question. What if someone is already doing good? Often this duplication of efforts at the macro or the micro level is a big waste, all right? Lots of times people come in and ask for help in doing good, and they want to start up an organization that someone else basically has already started before, right? And they're doing the exact same thing and maybe even the exact same way. So one of the things you want to do is when you're thinking about this, you don't want to duplicate efforts, okay? You want to be what? Not the same thing again. You want to be like the next step up, adding to it. Consider starting a program versus an organization, okay? An organization, like I said, is a bigger investment, right? But a lot of times what people can do, and this is for profits and nonprofits, but mainly for nonprofits, is you start with a program and sell it or pitch it to an organization that's already set up, right? So you're actually basically doing that add to the organization. They're not going to bring you on if you're counter to their mission. And farming that out until you find the people who think your mission is positive is a lot easier than starting from scratch. Okay, so in essence, looking at benefits of your action, not so much a specific method to achieve the benefits, is what we're looking for. A lot of duplications come in because, right, we know of a way that works and someone else knows of a way that works. And the only difference between the two campaigns to do better is just that, the way it works. And maybe not arguing over the way it works would be something where, once again, you're taking a step up. Okay, here's the other thing now. Okay, a lot of businesses, this is a good way to go. Leading by example. Okay, if you're doing something that is counter to what you think is important for your community, okay, clean up your own backyard first. First of all, okay, you're leading by example. Okay, and in essence, going up to somebody and asking them to do something to improve, say, the environment, when you're polluting yourself, there goes your credibility. No one's listening to you. Okay. Also, there's the other thing here is your leadership is a transfer of skill or asset. Okay. So think in terms of, you know what, taking yourself and placing yourself where you're needed most. Okay. A lot of times, one of the best things you can do is actually find that unsung part of the organization. Okay. And go do what needs to be done. Right? And there's always that thing that people don't want to do. Okay, setting up for the party, good. Putting up the chairs, got a lot less people doing it, but it's needed anyway, right? Also, the other thing is this: when you clean up your own backyard, okay, once again, you're providing inspiration, showing that it can be done. Okay, your method of getting better can be repeated. And people are more likely to say, okay, I'm going to try that. We've seen it worked already. So remember, what do people like to do the least is often where the most valuable place to focus on you making a contribution. Alrighty. So we're going to look at newer wave solutions here for corps to do good. And one is the B Corp, and the other one is the benefit corp. Okay, and a lot of people, we use it interchangeably, right? And I tell you, doing the research for this, I was doing it the whole time, over and over again. I'm going, why am I coming back to here? Is because B Corp, okay, to almost everybody, is what? We think it's benefit corp. Same thing, it's just a shortening of it, right? No, it's not. Okay, so a lot of people think it's the same thing. One basically started as a set of concepts and principles, and the other is about, well, is based on laws to make those concepts and principles, okay, stronger because of force of law, okay, and bring it to reality more. So benefit corp, B Corp, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, right? So what are benefit corps? They're a legal entity type. You might have heard of LLCs. I've already talked about nonprofit corporations, okay? Let's see, there are C Corps. S Corps are not really kind of corp, but that's a popular thing also that gets misconstrued. But C Corps, even if they're pretending to be S Corps, can become benefit corporations, okay? Not-for-profit corps are similar, but they're not organized with the profit DNA in there. Okay, when you start a nonprofit, okay, things are different than when you start for-profit. Okay, and one of the most important things is, hey, when it gets down to it, not-for-profits aren't owned by a person. In theory, they're owned by the community they serve, right? And a lot of times when people come in, I want to start a nonprofit, and they've heard that, well, nonprofits don't have to pay certain taxes. And the amount of nonprofits that are out there that shouldn't be out there, okay, thinking like, well, I won't have to pay taxes because I'm a not-for-profit, okay, it's huge. It's a very large portion of nonprofits that are out there are set up and they're working as for-profits. They're actually really being owned by somebody instead of by the community, right? So not-for-profits, they are set up to be able to accept donations, okay? And with this, two magic things: not pay taxes on the donations as income, okay? So money comes into the nonprofit, boom, right? Do we have to pay income on this? Income tax? Nope, right? The next thing is the quality, the giver for a tax deduction. They qualify the giver for a tax deduction. And there are some nonprofits where you give money and you know what, there's no tax deduction. For instance, donating to political campaigns. Can you write that off as an expense? For the most part, no, right? But in the standard nonprofit we think about, you qualify the giver to be able to take something off his taxes. Okay. Just a quick aside here. It's been done in California, okay? LLCs is not-for-profits. And they're similar to nonprofit corps, but the idea is that they're using a more user-friendly management structure. That's what LLCs are basically. You know what? Corporations are kind of annoying. Let's make it easier to run, more user-friendly. So they're using a different set of rules, et cetera. And we're going to cover some of those rules about being a for-profit corp. And you'll see how it can get a little crazy there. But the thing I want to point out to you is you might not want to do an LLC as a nonprofit in California, okay? Basically, the law and technology have something in common, actually in common with sushi too. When it's new and fresh, they have maybe great new flavors and features, and we think about giving them a try. New is better, right? But the nasty thing is, just like when you try out a new app, and you're the first you're going to be the first one to encounter the bugs that might not have fixes yet, right? Laws go through basically debugging in a sense, and the laws that started California LLCs are, the debugging is still going on. So when you do something brand new, you might think to yourself, do I want to be the guinea pig for this, right? So, though I have seen grand total of one nonprofit LLC, it never got off the ground, and there was lots of money behind it too. Kind of sad. So, B Corps. B Corp, not benefit corp, is a reference to a company that has received the B Corp set of certification from a nonprofit called B Lab, right? And in essence, I want to take another risk here. Let's stop this and see if I can get us online. And alrighty, and we're going to go here. Can you guys see
Yeah, it's like cut off in the middle. Oh, there you go.
All right.
It's full screen now, I think.
All right. All right. This is basically the birthplace of B Corps, right? And in essence, it's a lot to go through. And so going back to this, B Corps, okay, they're kind of where the first of this idea of having benefit corps came from, right? So in essence, what they were looking for is this idea of making it okay for-profit corps to do good stuff, right? And their definition of good stuff, okay, basically breaks down into about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different areas, 6, I can't count. And so basically how they're governed, right? Who's running them and how, okay? Impacts on workers, right? And we're talking everything from employees' financial securities to how much they might own, right? It's not necessarily standard operating procedure for you to work for a company and never own even a small, tiny piece, even for your own, say, retirement, okay? Next, they talk about the company's engagement and impact with their community, right? So this includes diversity, equity, economic impacts, charitable giving, okay? So lots of things there. And notice these things aren't really super tailored, but they want to give broad ideas of what people can do. Because if you restrict them, you might be wasting some good things happening. The environment, okay? So earth, water, I was going to say land, but I already said earth, right? Air, biodiversity, okay? Basically, taking steps in that area is another area that B Lab is actually trying to help, okay? And customers, okay? Strangely, one of the things that we do is how we treat our customers is going to be key. And also how we treat our customers or getting customers into us, right? This is one of those places that's win-win for businesses. So B Lab is talking about customers, environment, community, workers, how the place is run all together. So here's an example of a company that just recently got this certification, and they're called Wahoo Films, okay? I want to say Yahoo Films, but it's Wahoo. And their thing is film for good. And this is kind of a piece of their mission statement, okay? And in essence, there's information about them on this. And what's going on here is when you get certified to be a B Corp, okay, it's by that nonprofit, B Lab. It's not governmental, it's B Lab. And this is one of the ways they came up and said, you know what? We've got a lot of people claiming they're doing all types of good stuff, but nothing's getting done here. What's the problem? So what B Corp is actually doing is setting up standards. So, okay, if you meet the B Corp certification standard, okay, people can rely on that. And boy, we're going to see a couple things. It gets really kind of complex really fast. Okay, so here's their overall B impact score. They scored 100. They only had to score 80, and most people who try to get in there score, or half of them, like 50%. It's not easy. These people are actually raising the level of what needs to get done. All right, and basically, to break down governance, It evaluates the ability of a company to protect their mission and formally consider stakeholders, okay, decisions, making their corporate structure or corporate governance. And boom. So the funny thing about this is that's just one little example. Okay. You know what? I think I went out of order here. Governance, requirements. Yeah, I did go out of order. Sorry, guys. Okay. So they've got this list of what they want you to be into, right? And they give you the 6 areas, but here's part of how they score. So if you're a manufacturer, okay, this is how they weight the scoring for what they do. And they cover, and this is probably the best list, mission and engagement, ethics, transparency, that's for governing, right? Financial security, health, wellness, safety, career development, engagement and satisfaction. I think that's probably glass ceiling related. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, civic engagement and giving, economic impact, supply. Well, I'm going to read the whole thing. I'll leave it right there. But notice what they did here. To have some credibility, manufacturing has one set of numbers they got to do. Okay. Agriculture is pretty close to being the same, except for down here with the environmental stuff. Wholesale, retail, and different types of service. Okay. Service with significant environmental footprints and services that don't have a significant imprint. That would be, say, me. All right. And going through all of that is important for us to know about, because literally the legal requirements, okay, here I'm going to switch back over. B Corp's standards, okay, a lot of it has been adopted in state law, right? So what are we talking about with legal requirements? And basically, I'll break this down a little bit later, but basically, when it comes to being a corporation, okay, there is a hurdle about you doing good. And what B Lab started with these B Corps is the idea of, okay, confirming what's being done, making standards. So basically, when someone else comes in to do the same thing, you're all being judged equally. Okay, so they're really kind of making anyone who's going to do good, this is what you're shooting for. And it's a good thing too, because they also have this set up so people can measure their improvement. And the fun thing is, this is public. So in essence, someone says, oh, I'm helping the environment, and they're dumping lead acid batteries in the ocean. Okay, that pops up, they fall out of favor. Okay, they probably would never got in the first place. That's kind of an extreme one. But so the thing is, B Corp, or excuse me, B Corp and B Lab are the ones who got this going in the first place. Okay, I'm going to stop the share and cross my fingers and start a new share back where we were. Do you guys see something that says B Corp on top? Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Thank you. B Corp is a reference to a company. We already did this. Okay. So, and benefit corps, just as a reminder, are a type of corporation that's available through state laws. Okay. Basically, the laws of the state are the ones that deal with the contracts and things like corporations and LLCs, right? And so each state can decide whether or not they're going to have a benefit corporation. Okay. So the basic organized movement to push for benefit corporations started with B-Lab. I guess that makes them the, I don't know, chicken or the egg, I forget which one. And the desire that companies and their management are wanting to do good should have some legal protections, right? Like I said, there can actually be, you can get in trouble by doing the right thing, okay? So in California, well, California, and I think this has gone up since then. I think they might be closer to 40 now, benefit corp laws that have been passed. But one of the things here is that, you know what? They're not all the same, right? And in essence, it can differ from state to state. And you would probably have a tougher road to getting benefit corps going up if maybe the industry in the state is worried about the good that these benefit corps might actually lead into. So here's the main point. Being a benefit corp allows the company to legally take into account other stakeholders, okay? What do we mean that? Beyond just shareholders, what's the difference between those two things, okay? Basically, when you talk about a corporation, okay, a corporation is this legal entity, right? And when you form the corporation and it owns the business, okay, it protects the people that own the corporation. So in essence, I'm going to do this real quick again. Can you see my whiteboard?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. All right, so basically, corporations work like this. Okay, whoever owns the business directly, this is supposed to be the corporate owners, or proof that I have no talent in drawing. Okay, the corporate owners own the business. Okay, that's a good thing. All right, whoever owns the business can get sued for whatever it goes wrong with the business and have to pay up with the assets of the business and personal assets. So what corporations were born for was this idea of, if we put an artificial legal entity to own the corp for us and stayed out of the deals, then in essence, okay, we would get a liability shield that would say, basically, people who are dealing with the corp, who have contracts with the corp, say maybe your landlord or sometimes customers, etc. Well, they'll have a legal right to sue who they're doing business with, whoever's in their contract. Who's in the contract? The corp is. This person down here isn't in the contract. So therefore, when the corp makes money, okay, and it stays with the corporation, it can be got, okay? But corporations do this thing called dividends. And it's one of the ways you send money from where it can be got at to behind this liability shield where it can't get got at, right? So if there's a huge Microsoft whoops in some type of app, the problem is, if Microsoft isn't big enough to pay for all the damage it did when it got sued and loses, can you get into Bill Gates' pocket? And the answer is no. Okay, people did business with Microsoft Corp. Okay, Bill is sitting behind this corporate veil, this corporate shield that says, you know what? Once the money goes from where you can get it to somewhere you can't, hands off. Well, to do this, you actually have to start what looks like doing what you do with a human being or a country, okay? You got to have paperwork that comes up, et cetera, et cetera. right? And to run it, you're going to have a set of people that you have to deal with according to one document that's very important. And hold on here. Am we back to corporations quickly and how they work, I hope? So corporate formation starts, the reason for them, liability protection, okay? But what we're looking at here, as far as benefit corps and B corps go, is this idea that the managers, okay, might be calling the shots, but they have to follow two basic parts of the law, the state law and their own bylaws. And this management class, okay, they're chosen by shareholders. Who are the shareholders? The people that really own the business, right? They can be some of the managers, but a lot of times they're not, right? Shareholders or stockholders, okay? They're the basic owners, okay? So in essence, there's kind of a, do the real owners like how the business being managed, okay? Is anyone else who has power over this? Well, there's nothing in most laws that say that if there needs to be some type of good done, that corporations are forced to go do it, except for in really crazy times. And unfortunately for us, we've been through them, okay? So their whole thing is, once again, the one thing they've been set up for is maximizing profit, okay? Right? So the corporation, if the corporation strays from that priority, the owners could sue the management. This is called a derivative lawsuit, okay? And so in a strange way, you're suing, if you're a stockholder, you're suing the people that you elected to run your corporation. And when that happens, it's like an internal civil war for the corporation. So doing the right thing can get you sued or fired. Okay, even defining the right thing can start conflicts, right? But some of the real life examples of how these things have been happening in public are this. There's an allergy emergency treatment that was once upon a time owned by a corporation, and it was bought out, okay? And when people had these allergies, they gave them these shots of this treatment. And well, if you go to the idea of the only thing your corporation can do is maximize profit, okay? This is what the second owners did. They said, like, well, you know what? We've been selling these things for like $20. They're going to die without it. Let's jack up the price, right? So that's just one of the things that supposedly this revolution is trying to counter. A lot of times when there are people who are brave enough in the corporate management to say, no, we got to do X, Y, and Z, they might be putting themselves in the chopping line, right? So a lot of times these things are a matter of a degree of just how much a corporation can do, and at what point do the shareholders have a right to say, you're hurting our profits, okay? So benefit corporations basically have a public benefit purpose, okay? And social, environmental, as we looked at. We also looked at workers, et cetera. And in California, our law for doing a general purpose is basically paraphrased, a material positive impact on society and the environment as a whole, okay? Compare that with pure profit, okay? All right, but I can't say profit's bad, because let's look at this. You're not able to do anything unless you are making money. So what this B Corp and Benefit Corp movement is about is kind of the hybrid. we can make money, but we can also watch out for the environment. We can also treat our employees well. We can also make sure that women get to the board of directors or even CEO level. Okay. All things over the years that have been used as excuses by some of the corporate men. Oh, can't do that. Why? Because it's not maximizing profit, right? So basically the directors and officers of the top management versus the shareholders, and maybe even the bondholders are who's at play here, right? Employees, pension retirements, community and society, local, global environment, other company interests, with the corporate governance under benefit corporations in California can play in all these arenas, right? So for instance, one of the things people will say about corporations is we never know what they're actually up to. Transparency is one of the things that you actually do with, right? And in starting benefit corps, you know what they did? They did something that's kind of hairy. There's actually a requirement in the California's law that says, okay, you have to get, okay, standard for your benefit corp, okay, from someone who's independent, someone who actually put out to society comments about what would be good for benefit corp to be required to do as a minimum standard, okay? And in essence, when you look at it, okay, that's what B-Lab has become. It doesn't just do the certifications, but it is one of those third parties that you can actually use in judging, okay, or actually following the benefit corp law in the States. Now, B-Lab is a really toughy one, but if you look at it, it's kind of hairy to go through. You're definitely motivated to go through B-Lab, but the standards come from that source, right? So to enforce accountability, okay, for the purpose, what can happen if a benefit corp does not do what it's supposed to do? Say it goes back to old school and says, hey, we're just going to make money, the heck with everything else. Okay, well, one of the things that can happen is the shareholders can sue the company for not fulfilling the purpose, right? Non-shareholders, okay, can't sue, right? Say, for instance, if you're helping the environment and somebody who is outside of the company who would benefit from that, say an environmental action group, okay, they can't really sue and say, you're not following your mission, but the shareholders can, right? And that's the biggest difference right there. Before, the only thing the shareholders could really do is say, like, make profit, do good decisions, right? Now it can say, make profit, do good decisions, and part of what we think is important, okay, how you govern the environment, workers, customers, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's in the mix. So now that you're here, the thing I want to point out is you came to show up for this, and hopefully I didn't bore you to death, right? But let's keep your momentum going, all right? So I borrowed this from one of my presentations, okay? But this is true. As far as doing good, okay, you know, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You're trying to be something more than that, right? We often start looking for new, but we forget we have been in the same spot before, right? So don't reject old ideas, all right? Older does not mean bad. And believe me, with all this great gray hair on my head. I gotta have to actually say that. It's required for me to say, older doesn't mean bad, but consider some of your favorite musical artists, etc. Okay, and sometimes your first, that will be the best idea you have. But I suggest you want to do good, do some brainstorming. Okay, select a method and take action. Select a way to do it, a target to take action. Okay, and basically let your guidance be, as long as it's doing what you want, okay, as long as it's producing what you need, okay, keep those ideas in action until you find something that's better. Okay, so another way of getting you going is to realize that motivation, okay, the spark, how to ignite your action, a lot of times comes from personal, right? So one of the things you want to actually do is maybe take a look at yourself. What challenges did you hit, or did you see happen to someone else? Maybe there's core values in which, you know what, your company's done a good job of doing, and maybe showing other companies how to do it, right? Your business mission statement. A lot of times when we come up, and sometimes we call it the elevator pitch, a lot of times we come up with, we're doing some type of good and making a profit at the same time. Sometimes one of the best things to do is revisit that and see what maybe not-for-profit or benefit corp status, how would that actually change what you could do? Another thing I like throwing out here, I love using SWOT analysis, which I don't think I said before. It talks about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's used for marketing analysis. But you know what? Spreading your strengths. Look at weaknesses. Okay, what are some of the weaknesses that are obstructing your business? A lot of them are societal, right? Are there any opportunities that are floating around out there? Is someone just asking for something specific, right? And sometimes threats, a little fear goes a long way. I don't know what you guys think about global warming, but the weather recently, I would call that a threat for me, okay? One of the ways to actually look about what you're going to be doing, okay? Look at your industry, okay, and see what other companies are doing, okay? Look at your trade associations. Some of them have campaigns already in certain areas, right? For instance, for a while, a lot of sweatshops for making clothing, okay? Trade associations said, we're looking bad, okay? Let's start doing something for the people who are in Bangladesh or Central America, okay? Better working conditions. Maybe set up a certification program, right? So look at businesses in your similar area. Another thing you can do besides just Googling is, if you're familiar with SIC codes or NAICS codes, a lot of times that will bring up corporate reports. And usually corporate reports will have, what are we doing for our community in it? May not be so true, but maybe you can do it for real. But if you're there, you're not there yet, okay, you're not jumping on the benefit corp bandwagon, I can't say I blame you. Change is kind of scary, and maybe you're in what I call the humbug zone, all right? And you believe there's no purely selfless acts or good deeds. Let's take a look at how you could think about this just being in the profit zone, okay? Basically, you're looking for ways in which to make your business run better, and you don't care about anything else. One of the ways you can do is distinguishing yourself from the rest of your competitors is to take up a cause, okay? Making you unique and standing out to customers, great thing to do, right? So you don't even have to have a bad reputation first. just making yourself stand out. Okay, key part of your branding, right? Create a goodwill story that is continuing source of positive PR, right? You're going to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, but you know what? They'll say, but you know what? These people were doing some great environmental work. So if you're just dollars and cents, right there is enough for you to keep on going with this. I'm actually looking into thinking about doing this myself, as hairy as it is, depending on the time I'm allotted. And for those of you who like it, basically, one of the ways I give back is if you're starting a not-for-profit or some type of program yourself and you need legal, okay, go ahead and hit me up, all right? I cannot be your lawyer, but there's some things I've gone through that I might be able to make it easier for you to avoid. So I do that with all my clients everywhere. If you're thinking about doing something good and I can be of any service, small or large, please hit me up. Best way to do it is, you know, I didn't put it here either. benmartinlaw@gmail.com. Just identify yourself, like, dude, you said this, and we can get together and talk about what you plan on doing, right? So you're going to do good. What about the rest of the world? They're waiting on you. That's it.
Thank you so much, Ben. Glad to know for-profits can still do good. Yeah, so thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed Ben's talk, and I think it's the last one for the year. I'm so sad. But we hopefully will have Ben back next year. And just a reminder that today's webinar is brought to you by the West Center. We are both a California Women's Business Center and a SBDC, Small Business Development Center, here in California. If you're not local to us in California, there are SBDCs all over the country. Just look up SBDC and usually there's a zip code finder. Sorry, Ben, I'm going to take over sharing really quick.
Oh, go for it.
And just really quick, that if you enjoyed today's webinar, I hope you'll consider making a small donation, since this webinar was brought to you for free. We are a nonprofit that relies on community contributions. So your contribution will help us greatly and continue to bring these webinars to you for free and help make things run smoothly. The QR code is up for your use, or I have the donation link in the chat. But if not, that's okay. We will still continue to bring these webinars to you for free. And with that, I think that's a wrap. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope to see Ben again next year. I hope to see you all join us for another webinar. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.